Welcome to the Brandon Team Podcast. This is episode 2. So what we are going to be talking about today is a topic that, gets brought up a lot, and that is for sale by owners. So we're going to dive into a little bit of for sale by owners. We're going to talk some numbers and just go over some actual real life experiences and pros, cons, and really kick it off. So Jamie, Dylan, do you guys have anything to start us off with on for sale by owners?
Well, I want to just say, when obviously I'm fairly newer into, the game and everything. And I think one of the most interesting things to me is seeing for sale by owners, learning a little bit about how successful that is. I know we're going to get into the stats and everything. I know if I remember correctly, it's about 5% of deals get done,
right.
By for sale by owners. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's just kind of interesting, their approach towards things. Obviously we try to sell ourselves, and we're going to get into that, but it's just kind of eye opening to see, how people feel towards realtors and, towards themselves. If you can do it, great. I think that's
100%.
Awesome. You can always if you can do it, applaud to you. But I think we're going to kind of get into why it might be easier or honestly just better for you to use a realtor and what the benefits are. So
I think that's something that is always kind of interesting when we'll sit around and call for sale by owners sometimes and just kind of get a feel for them and maybe throw our hat in the ring to list their house if that's needed. But it's always interesting just hearing how it goes for each individual. And like you said, we're always super supportive. Like if you can sell your house on your own,
do it.
Please do. And,
more power to you.
Yeah, we'll ask, how are you marketing your home?
How did you come up with the price to list your home at? It's interesting talking to for sale by owners because like you mentioned, we'll call them and it's not so much the fact that we're trying to sell ourselves on the phone by any means. It's more so I call and what I typically say is just, I'm doing a survey of for sale by owners and I'm just genuinely curious kind of why did you decide to sell by yourself? And of course, 90% of the time, 99% of the time, probably. What do you think the answer is? Commission. So exactly. Then it's the questions of, like you mentioned, why are you selling? Kind of what price how did you come up with that price? Where are you moving to? What are you using for marketing? Do you understand how the platform you're on? Do you understand how they market for you? Things like that. And I think that's interesting.
And I also think one thing that's important as well is there's so much more that goes into the deal as well. A lot of times we'll ask people, when it comes to the transaction stuff, do you know what you're doing? Do you need help with that stuff? And, I think that's something that people don't necessarily always realize when they're going through it. There are, of course, those people who have done it before and know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
But there are also people who just, like you said, they just don't want to pay the commission and they're like, I can do it myself. And well, again, sure, you can probably do it yourself, but there's just so much more that is involved with the process.
Because that's when you ask, what's your plan when you get an offer?
Right.
What if you get 3 in the same day?
Then I'm going to just figure out who's the highest and hope the title company takes care of everything for me. I mean, that's a very common answer. And and that's when you get to the point too. And Dylan, I know you've talked about this before, which is what contracts are you using? How are you protecting yourself as a seller that's selling the home? One of the biggest financial moves you'll ever make. How are you protecting yourself to make sure that you're not getting taken advantage of? And because I can tell you from a conversation that I had with a processor at a title company that I'm not going to name, but she specifically said it bothers her that for sale by owners come in and they expect to be handheld through the entire process by basically just saying that, hey, well, we expect you to do everything. And the job of the title company is to ensure the title, get everything processed, get it to the point when you come to closing, everything is zeroed out on that house and you're taking a free and clear home over. That is their job. Their job is not to handhold your way through appraisal. Their job isn't to handhold your way through reviewing a contract and seeing what to expect. So I see their frustration. I get that.
And quite honestly, it's important for a for sale by owner to realize even if there's an agent involved in the transaction, they're not on their side.
Right.
I mean, they're not
being represented.
Right. They have a legal obligation to their own client, and they're working contracts in a way so that it's favorable for their client.
Right.
And, if you've never, you might have skimmed through it, but you have to fully read it in depth and understand what they're trying to get out of you along with your home.
And Jamie, to your point, I mean, you hit a nail on the head right there. I mean, NAR put out a stat that it was 5% was the amount of for sale by owners that were sold within the market. So can you really, as a for sale by owner, obviously saving the commission, selling it yourself, great, fantastic. But at the end of the day, I mean, I get motivation has a lot to do with, do you have the time to try to sell yourself? And, or do you really do you got to get going? But can you afford to have that 5% chance, in a sense, to be in that realm of getting your home sold?
And another thing, just like a quick note as well, is like, you're going to be like opening your house up to people like whenever, like, I mean, and I don't know what the situation might be. It might be a vacant home that you're trying to sell, but that's something that I always think about as well, is like, you got to find out the logistics of that. And what if you're at work? What if there's a very interested buyer and you're at work? Like, what are you going to do? So there's just so many, again, there's a lot that goes into it. And I don't mean to like bash on for sale by owners, because I actually, props to them if you can get it done. Like, if you're that 5%, awesome. I just think that, it's interesting to like see that side of it. And that's kind of why we're trying to express the importance of actually working with a realtor and how that can benefit you as a seller. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think looking back at it is saying, what percent was it that works with real estate agents, Stellan? Like
91.
91. Okay. So it was 91% of all transactions took place with a real estate agent assisting. And I think that's a pretty eye-opening number. And there's another stat within that NAR report that said the average sale price with a for sale by owner versus an average sale price with median sale price with a agent. And it was something around 365, I think, was the 365K, I believe, was roughly the price of a for sale by owner. And listed with the real estate agent, it was a little over 420. So just understanding the differences there. And you can say, oh, well, commissions are factored into that. But it gets to the point where you're getting so much more market exposure where you're making a net gain in most cases at that point. But this is something that I found very interesting, which is the average home buyer right now is 40 years old.
First time home buyer.
First time. Thank you.
That's
first
so
time.
wild.
Yes. Average first time home buyer right now, 40 years old. And so let's think about that. So another stat was the average home buyer. Now I get 40 years old was the average first time home buyer. Average home buyer, 62 years old. Average home seller, 64 years old. So why is it that year over year, those numbers continue to rise? And I think that's a question that we need to ask ourselves. And us being what, Dylan, we were talking about generations before this. And we said the baby boomers are the generation right now that are really doing a lot of the selling and the buying. Yeah. And you look at our current generation right now, and it's the fact, what is different? And I think there's a lot of differences. That I guess, Dylan, do you have any thoughts in terms of what the differences between the two generations are?
Yeah, I would say one of the leading contributing factors to that is saving, and just the amount of,
I agree with that,
people that decide to maybe rent instead of save for a down payment and just get in a house now, and even if that means renting. But yeah, overall, just stashing money aside from, every paycheck or what have you. I think that was a huge emphasis, in older generations. And I mean, obviously you can kind of dive into the economy and, housing prices, but I think that's kind of a baseline.
Well, and I think like something for me at least is growing up, like I was always like, okay, I'm going to get a house to get equity, right? Like I just feel like that's my mindset. That's why I got a home at more of a younger age. I guess now that I know, know that stat, I'm way outlier.
So how old were you when you originally bought your home?
23, I think. 23.
Yeah.
So,
that's huge.
Yeah. So
congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and I think but for me, it was like building equity. Like I don't want to, I was grateful enough to be able to live with my parents until I could buy. And so for me, that was me saving a ton of money versus, having to go into an apartment. Again, I'm very fortunate enough to be able to have that opportunity. And a lot of people aren't as fortunate. And so, again, being able to do that is something that my mindset was always like, let's get a home first to build equity. And that way I'm not essentially wasting money. And I hate saying that, like wasting money for an apartment, but it is. I mean, I'm building something versus it essentially going to the trash.
You're getting something at the end.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest difference. You're getting something at the end versus renting. You're really not at all.
Yeah. And I think that's why I brought that up, is like, that's the mindset, I think, in more of our generation. Like, people our age are just renting, and they're just not, I don't think they're thinking as much of the equity piece, which is, I don't know exactly why. But I just feel like older generations were always equity first, and like, get your home. And you had mentioned something as like saving up for your home as you're growing up, and now I don't know if people are saving as much for homes or what they're saving for, but I just think the older generations prioritize that a lot more.
No, I agree with that. And I think that has a big emphasis on what are the priorities of the current generation now that are entering in the housing market. And it's kind of hard to say who is entering into the housing market, because you look at first-time home buyers. You look at the median age of home buyers. Like, the generation that we're talking about, I mean, is us right now is, 26-year-olds, 27, 25-year-olds that are looking into housing. Like, we're to the age now, we're out of college, we're kind of looking into seeing what's out there. And I feel like most buyers right now are looking for what way can I get a roof over my head for the cheapest? And when they see a purchase price of $150,000 or $300,000, it's immediately intimidating. And understandably so. But I think it's the fact that growing up, like you said, you were always told, from the older generations, always told that you need to save at least half of what you make, set it aside for a house. That's what they were preached that constantly. And our generation now is, you get money, great. What sports game's on tonight? Try to double it real quick. Like, and then you can look into stats of addiction, and you can look into whether any type of addiction, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's gambling, whether it's nicotine. Anything that you can find a way to spend money on, that's blowing money that you're supposed to be kind of setting aside for something bigger than, honestly, it's kind of bigger than yourself at that point.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to see just how much people are like spending on non-essential things.
I think it's a sickening number, to be honest.
But okay. Also, like, I don't want to say like don't have fun. Like, it's people have their own ways to live, and that it is what it is. But I really do think it's interesting to think about. Like,
it would be, and the thing to always fall back on is just social media and what that is leading us to, what we can see online, and
target marketing.
Yeah, what that leads certain people to spend their money on, or what they think is a good decision, probably is nowhere near what our parents or grandparents thought a good decision was.
Well, no, right. My biggest thing which is so current as of today, is because in Missouri, obviously, sports betting became legal in December, and my biggest thing is it really genuinely feels like every third ad right now is a sports betting ad.
Yeah.
Every one or two ads is a sports betting ad. And it gets to the point where that's in your face so much. And as a generation that we have that is so in love with sports and the thrill of anything, I feel like that is taking so much time and money away from possible home buyers. And I believe that is a big difference between the generation before us versus the generation that is entering into the housing market for the very first time.
Yep.
And just to preference, all the stats that we're reading off of are from the NAR, National Association of Realtors. They did a 2025 recap, and it was really interesting. And in our description, we'll put a link to it so you can take a look at it. But I think for sale by owners is one of those avenues where if you have the time and you have the patience, and you can do it right, it's 100% worth taking the shot.
Yeah.
We're never going to tell somebody not to do it.
Right.
But it's just the fact, if you're going to play a numbers game, then it's definitely worth reaching out to a realtor to get the best feel for how to move forward, and if it is in your best interest to go with one of us in a sense to get your home sold.
Yeah.
But so anyways, guys, thanks for listening to this episode. We're really excited for what we have coming up. This is officially episode number 2. Episode 3 is going to be out next week. So stay tuned. Make sure to follow, like, share the show. We appreciate you.
Hey, take care.
Thank you, guys.